And there we go. All right, ladies and germs, if you guys are watching this, if you're just coming in and watching this, God damn it, this setting over here, if you don't want to hear me jibber jab with people in the chat room, then, and you want to get to the show, just go ahead to the zeros and you will be fine and dandy. A's going to come in a minute. She is chilling right now. She's had a very busy day. We've both had a very, very busy day. Well, hello, baby. How you doing?
Be right back.
Well, thanks, Pumpkin.
You need this too. Here you go.
Yep. Thank you, doll. My wife is the shiznit. That is the way it goes. Okay, so she's going to do her thing. Let's see who's in the house. Sean in the house. Cobalt was here bright and early. It was nice to see you. Christine, we have sound now. Thank you. Kim Hansen, hello. How are you doing? Sean, can you hear us? Steve, the iceberg, Ricky Berg. Edward Rocco's in the house. How you doing, sir? Good to see you. Good to see you. I got some tea, and I got some whiskey. I got tea in there. There you go. Scotch. Actually, it's scotch. A is awesome, you guys. A is my jam. Everything is great. File cam, mutual adoration, so that we get done with the whole checklist. So tonight's fun. We're going to be doing a Q&A part 2 from Slay. We got these fancy new pop filters. We both have particular favorite colors, and they happen to have pop filters in almost our favorite colors. So it's a little bit of fun, just a little bling, trying to jazz up the show a little bit. So tonight we're going to do Slay episode 66, the last episode branded for Slay season 2. We're going to get through the Q&A, and this Q&A will also have a lot of non-Slay stuff in it. I don't know. I don't get to hear the questions ahead of time. September 12th, next week, we're going to be doing our first story in our Death is Black anthology, which is the 4th in our color series of collections. Our Death is Black collection, not anthologies, other people. Collection is just moi. I just learned that yesterday, as a matter of fact. Death is Black is short stories. It should run for about 2 to 3 months, and we don't know what we're going to do after that. After we get done with the Q&A, we're going to do a live recording of Deep Cuts, bonus content for the feed, where we will talk about the role of a publisher in fiction, explaining the publisher's role in the journey of a book from manuscript to market. And my beloved wife will be leading the charge on that, because she knows a lot more about that stuff than I do. Yeah, Timothy Clark pop filters. Just a little orange bling. It's a little orange bling. See, I can give you guys a zoom. Boom, boom. Go to the chat. See what we got here? Very, very fancy. Very, very fancy. Guys, this whole setup looks pretty good. Now, I'm still experimenting with the bleed issue and trying to control how my booming voice winds up on A's mic. So I brought my mic a little closer, and I'm going to try and talk a little bit quieter to see if that will help with this situation. But it's really interesting that I just produce more volume. You know, I guess I've been yelling at people my whole goddamn life long. You ready to sit on Pumpkin?
I did not say that.
Yeah. Let's go to opening, and then we'll switch cam, get you dialed in here.
Just one more. I got to do this.
Uh-oh. Oh, we can't do it from here. Okay, go back to chat, and then we can go to a cam. Boom, there's me. And there's you. Now you sit up.
Hi,
guys. Sit up nice.
Yeah,
the way you want to sit
sorted.
up.
Yep, I got to get sorted.
Got to get it sorted, gang. Again, if you're coming in on the replay, and you see this clock timer down here, if you don't want to hear us jibber jab with people, just go to the zeros. We'll get onto the content.
The zeros.
Hold on, baby. Let me mute that before you adjust that. Okay, go crazy. And as close as you can get to eating that microphone, that's what we are after. That's what we are after. Steve comes for the jibber jab. Will Price. Hi, Scott and A. Just finished listening to Pandemic Trilogy again. Man, that series hits hard. Thank you, Will. I hope you enjoyed it. It does it very hard. We're going to talk briefly about Crypt Book 2 today. And oh my God, it has a lot of infected vibes for me. And there's some hard stuff going on in that book. Tyler Miller, let me take a shot of that.
Yeah, can you text that shot to me?
Never
mind. That's okay.
No, but I can do this.
Yeah, that'll work too.
I'll line them up over there.
Hey Pam, nice to see you.
Oh, hold on, baby. I got to get you queued up. And there you go, Dollface. Is that better?
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. Hey Pam, nice to see you.
Hi, Pam. How are you? I love seeing Pam here because Pam discovered the fiction because of you. Because you guys go way back.
Yeah,
it's delightful to me.
Every time I see her out there, it makes me happy.
Kenneth in the house. Kenneth, I'm telling you what, I've been a bit of a mope around the house, I would say, for, probably the last 2 weeks, because I wanted to be done with Crypt Book 2 before football season, and I couldn't parse between these two different endings, and one didn't have enough. The other one left things missing and blank, and that was it last night? Yeah, last night. Hey, Zach. Last night, while I was asleep and dreaming, my brain kind of figured out how to put both endings together. And I am just over the moon today because it is whiz bang, crazy, bloody action. It's going to be fucking nuts. The end of this thing is nuts. However, we are now going from 116,000 words to 135. So,
but who would have thought? Who could have known if you gave your brain a break?
Yeah, A made me take a break this weekend. That's true. Christine, Crypt wants more horror in Crypt Book 2. The first one was too nice. Sister, you have come to the right shop. We've got stuff in stock. We've got it in stock. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, he does have it in stock. I'm a little bit afraid, I'm not going to lie to you guys at all about that. But I'm a little bit afraid of the in-stock horror that is there for Crypt Book 2 Plus.
All I'm going to say is, this is another one that my mother is not going to read.
Yeah, that's true.
And now some of it is so wrong and so graphic that I'm worried my nephews and nieces won't read it either. It's rough. It's very, very rough stuff. So hopefully you guys will dig it.
I hate to say this
another
before,
question for Tyler. Let's see.
Yeah. And if you can put it over here.
I'll do
Tyler
my
always
best.
asks great questions. I hate to say this before the actual show starts, but Steve Rickenberg in the Facebook chat room at 45 seconds in says, you either give your brain a break or you have it break. And I believe that is absolutely true.
We've got 30 seconds here, babe. Let me see if I can figure this out. So that is desktop. And do we have them both now? Yes. Okay, so I can just do this. I'll just cue them up for you.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, let's go ahead and get it back to OBS.
Some of these are a little bit repetitive, which is great because that means we're talking about the right thing.
Yep.
In case we see this, I can't see on your camera. Do we need to cover any of that?
Oh no, that's all totally fine. So and because like I mentioned, we're experimenting with this, trying to give me a little bit more of you volume.
Oh, sure. I have been waiting until the countdown at 01.
Now we go rid of the countdown minus main. Let's get rid of that. And hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. We are now going to start the recording process. I didn't think about how to intro these goddamn things. That's crazy.
You. Just hit recording
Ready?
And I'll do it.
And
hello, everybody. This is A.B. Sigler, audiobook narrator and half of Empty Set Entertainment, along with Scott Sigler, half of the writing crew of Slay Book 2.
That's correct. Half of the writing crew, yeah.
Scott Sigler, along with Rob Otto, wrote Slay Book 2. We are doing the second episode of the Q&A that we have for Slay Book 2 at the end of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Rob is unable to be with us tonight, but we have accrued a bunch of questions about Slay, about Empty Set, about any of Scott's other properties, and we're going to be talking about those tonight. Before we do that, let's get into the the schedule that we do from here.
Yeah, so this is what's going on. We got super fun stuff coming up for you guys. Sunday, September 1st, which is in the past, Slay episode 75, Q&A part 1 went live in your podcast feed. Tuesday, September 3rd, Deep Cuts 14 went live in your feed, and that was where we covered podcast tools of the trade, the hardware and software we are using to produce the podcast that you guys get to listen to every week. Saturday, September 7th, we have Steve the Iceberg Rickyberg's Junkie Hang. So that should be pretty fun. And obviously that's coming up real quick. So you can go to find bit.ly/Junkies Party. That is where the link to the Zoom chat is. BYOB. Steve does it for a long time, 4 to 7 Pacific, 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern time. So he's there to hang out with you. We have junkies from all over the world come in, talk about themselves. I will not be there. You see enough of this mug. And then Sunday, September 8th, tonight's episode will go live in the podcast feed. And then things start to get interesting, ladies and gentlemen.
I know. We're moving on up.
Wednesday, September 11th, Death is Black, episode number 1. Those will be short stories from the Death is Black collection, which is a collection of my short stories. I will be reading several of those. Some of those are already done, so we don't have to read them live, but we'll see how long that goes. We're going to figure that out. After that episode, we'll have as our guest Travis Vengroff, producer and co-creator of Fool and Scholar Productions, which makes amazing full cast audio dramas like The White Vault, Dark Dice, Don't Mind, and Vast Horizons. I got to chit chat with him today, and it's wonderful because Travis and his wife are basically the flip-flop of us. She's the creator. He is the publisher, the producer, does all the audio work, etc.
So she's the creative adjacent. No, he's the creative adjacent.
Yeah, I guess he's the creative adjacent. And this is an immensely popular podcast feed. So if you guys, I think if you are interested in what they do, you can go download The White Vault, WHITEVAULT, and they are full cast audio dramas, super pro, tons of sound effects. I get sweaty and twitchy thinking about the amount of work that went into them
and
doing
Cobalt,
that.
USA in the YouTube chat room says the White Vault was awesome.
Good.
So check that out.
New
Awesome.
season of White Vault coming up apparently. And then a week from then, on Wednesday, September 18th, we will have Death is Black episode 2 and Empty Set's very own Chris Grawl as our guest to talk about his incredible reference book, Trigger Guard. Now, I have been using this book in PDF form. I got to use it in Word form when he was still working on it, which heavily informed Warpath, which I still can't talk about, and it's heavily informed The Crypt. And then I bought it on Kindle, which I use a lot for searching. And now he just sent us the print copy.
It's a whole print book.
He did all the layout. He did everything himself. It's gorgeous inside. There's full color diagrams inside. It's got like the thing I just stumbled across today is like, okay, so say you've got a half cover wall. How do you position yourself with your firearm? How would a pro operator position themselves so that they can take advantage of the situation? Which, if you are a fiction writer or a podcast writer and you sort of need to know how these things work, this is the Bible for using guns in fiction. And we're going to be very, very proud to have Chris on remotely with us. I mentioned Crypt Book 2. I'm at 116K right now. Looks like I'll probably end up over 130,000. I don't know how this happens, man. It was supposed to be 110,000. I don't know how that effing happens. So
we're gonna finish the Slay Book 2, the Q&A, which is today, and then after this episode, yeah, you can do that as the last thing. I know you're super excited.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're super excited.
So I got some family news. I will share it with you guys at the. I'm not allowed. I want to show it, but I can't.
I was just gonna say after this Q&A episode, which is we are right in the beginning of, we are going to go into a Deep Cuts episode, and this Deep Cuts episode is going to talk about the role of publishers in fiction, and specifically explain the publisher's role in the journey of a book from manuscript to available to the marketplace. Yep. and how that relates to us as such a small publisher. But the last thing we're going to do before we get into questions.
No, I can show us now?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said at the end. So I'm going to switch cameras here real quick. I got a little bit of cough, guys. Sorry. Go to OBS. This is the latest Sigler to join the lineup. This is my guy, Lincoln Hayes Sigler. He is all kinds of teeny. And how old is he now? 2 months?
He's about 6 months old.
6 months old.
He's about 5 months old now.
5 months old. He is absolutely a gangster. And what I love about my nephew Tyler and my niece-in-law Emma is this is the family picture. They have tons of pictures. They probably pro photographer come in. This picture right here. Just Lincoln, just put him on his face. He's asleep. Don't worry about it. Just drop him right there. He'll be great.
They are among our favorite people. They are so great. They are so in love with their children. And they are so wonderful to spend time with. All four of them.
We have, excuse me, this would now be the first girl born into the Sigler family in 18 years. And before now, there's not a lot of girls come out of this family,
and where there's not a lot we can talk about.
We can't talk about it.
Well, I mean, we can just say that this happened, but today is the day, so we can't say much.
So I will say that when my niece Sydney was born, that was the first woman born into the Sigler family in 50 years. So that was kind of cool. And then my niece Riley came after her, and now there is a mystery guest that we will talk about at some other time. And I know you guys don't want to hear about this. but I'm freaking delighted.
Yeah.
They're all just
Scott and
gorgeous.
I are over
I love
the
them
moon
all.
to say that we have a new
Ollie Kirby in the house. Sup, buddy?
grandniece today.
Okay.
And we can't say anything else yet because, of course, it's a busy day for her parents and her. But when we're allowed, if we're allowed, we'll say more about that. But it is a very good day to be a Sigler.
Good day to be a Sigler. Again, if you're listening to this in the podcast feed, I just showed a picture of my nephew Tyler's family. We have a new baby. So we don't try not to show a lot of visuals, but we do occasionally. But if you want to join us, we do this live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/Scott Sigler, twitch.tv/Scott Sigler, facebook.com/Scott Sigler. You can join us, be in the chat room with all these lovely people who are in there now. And now it's time to get into Slay Q&A Part 2.
So just like I said last week, I'm about to ask Scott questions he hasn't heard before. The way these work is you send them into our content line, which normally goes to the both of us, but just comes to me during this time so that Scott doesn't get spoiled on the question. So you see his accurate and reasonable reaction in real time. So he hasn't heard these before. It is possible he won't choose to answer some of those questions. And if he chooses not to answer some of those questions, that's fine too. If you have other questions, even right now, you can post them in the chat room that you're in, or you can email them to info@emptyset.com and we'll get to them at a future date. You can ask any question you like about us, about Empty Set, about any of his stories. Everything is fair game to ask. I'm not sure he'll answer every question. And before I ask the first question, I would like to let all of you guys know that this is a spoilerific episode. Everything we talk about, if I say, hey, somebody has a question about the GFL, if you don't want to be spoiled about the GFL, the safest thing to do is jump ahead 30, 45 seconds or something like that, or just come back when you're all caught up. If you don't care, like I don't care, like I'm just going to tell you what we're about to spoil and then we're about to spoil it. So
we are a family where A doesn't give a crap if things get spoiled, and if you spoil something for me, I want to put a bullet in your temple. We're very different people. Let's
true.
rock and roll, pumpkin.
That's true. All right, so we're going to start with questions. We're not going to start with questions about Slay, but there are a couple of Slay questions in there.
Okay.
So the first thing that I will ask is this is a super easy one, and it's probably a question for me. Robert Gelb asked, now that COVID is over, is there going to be another Sigler Fest? This falls into my department at Empty Set Entertainment, and I will say it is extraordinarily, excessively unlikely that there will ever be another Sigler Fest. Will I rule it out 100%? No. Will I tell you that it's somehow forthcoming again and there's one more in the hopper? No, I will not. Is it possible we might do something? Yeah, it's possible. What is almost assuredly likely is what we will do is choose to go to a very big public event like Dragon Con or Comic Con or something like that.
Yeah.
And let you guys know well enough in advance that even if you don't go to that con, we'll commit to doing something the 2 days before or the 1 day before or something like that.
And I really want to go. I want to get back on tour. I haven't done a tour in 10 years, maybe somewhere in the ballpark.
2014, I think was
2014,
that?
yeah.
10.
So the next big thing we will do to go have outreach and chit chat with people will probably be some kind of get in the van and go tour like we did with the rookie many years ago, and hit as many places as we can. Sometimes bookstores, sometimes bars. We don't really care as long as we get to see your faces. We'll probably shoot for that. My guess would be some book that we have put out, or as I get back with other publishers now, we've got things lined up with publishers that aren't just us. We may go out on the road and see what we can do.
And there is a growing trend, and I'm totally in for it because we did this before it was freaking cool with the Rookie Tailgate Tour. Now there's a growing trend where you be your BYO asterisk B asterisk. So you can bring your own booze, you can bring your own book, you can bring your own whatever. And it's in a non-retail space, which makes it a lot easier for a lot of reasons. And then if you want something signed by Scott, you bring it. And we bring merch like T-shirts and stuff so that helps give us gas money and stuff like that. But we don't have to get, books are heavy and big. And so if we do something like Be Your Own BB, BYOBB, books or booze, books, booze, beverages, whatever, that is a possibility. And that is actually gaining in the post-COVID world. That's gaining some traction where you just find a space that works for anybody who wants to come. If they're too young to go to a bar, if we can't we're not going to haul, which we did for the Rookie Tailgate Tour, 3,000 pounds of books. We're not doing that anymore.
a lot.
That time is over. So we'll figure that out. That is much more likely. I do not think that there will ever be a unified Sigler Fest ever again.
Yep. No, see, we got the 2 camera setup going now. Look at that. There's this one, and now ready. Wait, you're here. Oops, shit. You're here, and now Parker Lewis can't lose. Whoopsh. Whoopsh. Whoopsh.
So that is the
Damn
question.
it, I got it wrong.
Please feel free to ask that as many times as you like. The likelihood of us doing a Sigler cruise, which is, I don't know, COVID soup,
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen.
unlikely. The likelihood of us actually mounting a loss leader marketing event like a Sigler Fest again, probably unlikely. The likelihood of us doing a book tour where we bring all those books, probably unlikely. The likelihood of us meeting you somewhere in public to party and engage in fun times with an author, totally doable.
Very doable. All right, let's rock and roll.
All right. Kim Hansen has this question. Regarding fight scenes, both one-on-one and in large battles.
Okay,
I personally get really, really bored with gun shootouts, comma, 2 guys punching each other over and over and over, comma,
Yep.
and war scenes with thousands of soldiers trying to destroy each other.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you keep your fights fresh and ensure that they don't become repetitive or formulaic?
Well, a helpful part of that is I have the person I spend the most time with and one of my biggest fans who basically skips over the fight scenes. She doesn't give a shit. If I put gun porn in it, like it's this particular gun with this mod that's firing these shells, she just glazes right over that. And the Evil Queen did the same way.
Yeah,
so
she and I are allowed to like it that way.
Didn't care. So I try and put just a little bit of spice in the scenes. Like if you see with Lincoln, there's probably less than 10 actual firearms named. And if you even count, his axe and Tizona, which is a real sword, if you count that, it's under 15. There's just not a lot. So it's just the guys like Chris Grawl, who we'll have on as a guest in a couple of weeks, and probably some of the guys in the chat room, people in the chat room, who like that stuff and want to like, oh, I'm going to look that up on YouTube. I'm going to look that up on Google. That's a special Easter egg delight for people. So I don't put a lot of that in. What I try and make sure that I establish if this gun is more powerful than other guns, like in the Hippo stories, I'm going to make sure that you are aware of that. Mm. And then it largely comes down to, guns are the great equalizer of the human race. And you don't need any skill. You don't need any intelligence. You don't need any morals. You can impose your will upon the world with a firearm pretty easy. So I try and approach from that perspective. And I guess the final thing I'll say about it is you're only seeing the firefight from the perspective of the point of view characters. And this comes into play with the Crypt. The next 3 days, I'll be doing some pretty intense firefights with Bennett and Beaver and Abshire. And those can easily spiral to 8, 10, 15 pages, which will wind up getting cut anyways. It really comes down to, do they see a target? Do they shoot at a target? Then there's the fog of war, all the things that are going on around you when you're in combat, when you were really just worried about staying alive and keeping your guys alive. And then when people actually take a bullet, what happens from there? I will say there's Biggie Bang is a point of view character in this book. Sorry for the spoiler, but I'm delighted with her as the Octhera pilot. And she has a similar thing, which is, Top Gun-esque fight scenes where if it's a movie and it's Starbuck and Battlestar Galactica, you can see everything in the choreography. You can see her face. You can see her reaction. You can see the Viper shaking. There's all these things that don't require words for you to understand the dance and the choreography of what's going on. And in text, I have to spell out everything, so I just show you less. Is that good?
It does. I have several things to say.
Okay.
One, I did not know Biggie Bang character in.
I didn't tell you that?
No. And also,
Shit.
I was like, you were like Biggie Bang. And I was like,
what's up, Michael?
And then you were like, she. I was like, what? Biggie Bang might be me. But we have several things to say. Mike Deschamps, so good to see you. Love you. Another person I've known my whole life. Also, Shannon Chevery, if you're watching, happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Shannon.
Do you have a couple of off-the-cuff questions are short? We're going to do them as bullet questions from the YouTube chat room. Christine asked, do you play card games?
No, not really. I don't. The only game I am playing right now is Fortnite. and we treated ourselves to a PS5. I don't even play FIFA anymore. I never will play Madden on any console ever again. I can't handle it. It's too good, and my love for football wipes that out. So I don't play a lot of games because games take time away from writing. And A and I have intentions of getting into playing games, together, like card games or video games.
We do have one that we're targeting. We're not talking about yet, but we
can't talk about it?
We can't talk about it in case I can't get into it because I've never played a game before. So we're targeting one for November. But what I want to say is,
way to go, Michael Moore.
If and when required to, Scott can play poker. He can play at least 5-card draw, 7-card draw, and Texas Hold'em. I have watched him play all 3 of those games.
I don't bet money though because I'm not.
Right,
good.
I was going to say that, and also I think it's either hearts or euchre. I played with you once sometime in the great dark
euchre.
past.
Euchre, I'm pretty good at. That's a Michigan or Midwestern game.
I wasn't sure if it was hearts or euchre.
Now I will tell you guys this: watching live or on the podcast, a guy like me should be good at poker. That's all. I'm an author and I'm a horror author and I like to drink and have scotch and whiskey and like to hang out.
You had a little poker game with your friends
for
a while.
Poker game with friends in San Francisco, but I don't know what my tells are, but they are really readable. My co-author of Slay, Rob Otto, is an exceptionally good poker player.
I bet he never gets caught.
and plays competitively. And I learned, I'm like, Rob could literally tell me like, I think you got 2 kings and a 7. I'd be like, fuck yourself. And I throw the cards down and walk off the table.
Which is not the rules at all.
But he was right. I'm like, you go to hell.
Except
you go to
you're
hell.
supposed to be like, what is your bet? And you're like, you know what? Fuck yourself. And you
Which keep in mind, he knows me better than anybody. He can play me like a fiddle when it comes to gambling.
So interesting to me is I love poker in many forms and play poker in many forms. We have never played poker together competitively or for charity or anything like that because I think we would be oil and water. So we are going to move on to other questions.
Okay.
I do want to say Tyler Miller in the chat room at YouTube has a lot of great questions, but he says, can we just give a mention? Spoilerific. Can we just give a mention to Tommy, quote, Bookworm, end quote, Streisand, and how he is the best character ever?
Oh, my dad's so mad at me for Bookworm, you guys. I can't even tell you. My dad, like, I don't even know why I read your goddamn books. You make a character that I just love and I could not want to see more. So I scary Perry Dawsied my dad with Tommy Bookworm.
And you see this question. Can I ask this question?
Sure.
Is that too spoiler? Okay.
Remember, spoilers. If you guys haven't consumed my books, Q&A episodes are spoiler-tastic.
Tyler Miller in the YouTube chat room asks, is Tommy Bookworm who Scott sees himself as in Fitzroy?
No, I don't think so. Most of my social circle at this point is authors. When we do hang out, it's like Peter Clines, Jonathan Mayberry, Nicholas Sansbury Smith, the publishers at Athon, who are awesome people. I am just surrounded by book people all of the time in my social world.
Yeah.
And Tommy is those authors, and also he's you guys. He's you guys.
That's how I see it too.
Tommy is, Tommy has a bookshelf of the stuff. He's got the whole bookshelf, and then he's got the top bookshelf. Like if I gotta go, I'm taking these 10 books with me. He knows what 10 books he is taking with him. They are print books. He has a Kindle. He had all that shit.
Sure.
But he is you guys. He has a book collection of shit that he's read a dozen times.
One that's like tabbed with things he wants to revisit again,
shit
like that.
Tommy's
I
think
Tommy,
like your mom Zippy. Like Tommy reads print books and then puts the date he finished the print books in the inside cover. So he can keep track of how many times he's read them. He is just a bibliophile.
You guys all know this. If you're listening, I'm talking about somebody in the chat room on Facebook, my brother Jude Stenson. Jude and I both know my mother has a specific physical paperback book. It is a J.R.R. Tolkien book. I believe it is not The Hobbit. I believe it is the first book of the Fellowship. But she has it in a carved wooden box, and she has put Post-it notes kind of highlighting segments, and she has also written in the front cover how many times she's read it, and now she can't open it anymore. That is how decrepit that book is. She has just retired it entirely. And so I believe that Tommy is that guy. I don't think that Tommy isn't you. I think
there's a lot of me and Tommy for sure.
Well,
yeah.
exactly. But I think Tommy is you and all of us. Anybody who loves a book, who loves whatever format that they engage with that fiction,
Mm-hmm.
they're that person, no matter how you see it, no matter how you hear it, no matter how you watch it. If you can watch it 1,000 times and love it, Tommy is part of you, but Tommy is also part of
I think,
me.
and Tommy's also several people I've known, me to a very small extent, of it's the quiet people in public or in a bar when other people are being loudmouth bullies. And it's this quiet person that you should not have fucked with that person, because they don't. Tommy is a character who knows how to take a person out in a dozen ways and gives zero warning.
Yep.
Tommy's not the guy like, oh, you gonna start with me, bro? Come on, bring it on, bro. Like there's no talk with a Tommy.
Yep.
There's no talk. There's like, you've invaded my space. I've asked you to leave me alone. Please don't come near me. Please don't touch me. Don't put your hands on me. And the second you do, Tommy assumes you are there to kill him or hurt him. So he is going to make sure if anybody in that situation gets hurt, it's the other person. Mm-hmm. And then Tommy, as soon as that person is down, gets the fuck out of the bar. There's no shit talking. There's no nothing. And I think everybody in the room probably knows someone like this who is like, their first instinct is survival. And they are paranoid. They are polite. They are paranoid. First instinct is survival. And the second the conflict begins, they're going to end that conflict to save themselves. Not to be a tough guy, to save themselves.
Tyler in the YouTube chat room says, man, there's no way how to mark how many listens I give a book. I have two, actually I have three for you. One is you just put on your calendar, just like you say, today is my mom's birthday, or however you mark calendars for people, or mark the occasion on your calendar for people you love, like Scott's birthday, Mom's birthday, Jude's birthday, Lolo's birthday, whatever. That's how it looks in my calendar, but there's birthday is always the same. So I can search birthday. What I do if I want to see how many times I've listened to a book is I do the author's last name and at least the first word of the title. I normally put the whole title, and then I just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then you can just search whatever your calendar is on your computer and find that. Another thing is you can go to Goodreads, and that will help you mark that if you choose to. And third, you can absolutely just keep a note for yourself. But I do all three of those things.
Yep.
So
Okay.
engage with all of those.
All right. Next question.
All right. This is a nocturnal question.
Not spoilers
Prepare.
for Nocturnal.
Yeah.
Here we go. Yep.
Daniel Newby asks if Marie's children are based in several locations around the world and survive the saviors, which I believe Scott said somewhere that they can, why are they not represented in the GFL? I would imagine someone like Firstborn, with his strength and speed, would be an amazing fullback and a better quarterback. So why are they not in any teams?
Two-part answer. Number one, they might be and you don't know it because they don't announce this shit. And number two, 6 centuries separate Nocturnal from the GFL. So there is an inordinate amount of stories related to Marie's children that haven't been told, and unfortunately I probably won't have time to tell in this very short life. So who's to say they are around? Who's to say that hasn't been cured? And who's to say it's not exactly the same situation as right now, which is they survive by staying in the shadows and not making themselves known. Hello, Joseph Aldred. He says, howdy, everybody in the chat room.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Well, I'll just lean into Joseph's question then.
Oh, my God. That's convenient.
That's perfect. Joseph Aldred asks, I am having problems with crafting a story blurb. What advice do you have to create something compelling and cover art compelling for that matter? I'm having problems, but getting closer and closer. So
a blurb for a story, there's a couple of weird answers for you. I also have trouble with it because I'm not a prolific short story writer because mine go very long. I am by no stretch a poet. I can't write poetry because poetry is, succinctness and brevity and keeping it very short. And I tend to expound on things. So for me, even for a thing like Slay, writing the book description for Slay where I get 3 paragraphs put on Amazon is difficult, really difficult for me. So I tend to get help from other people. And like I'll write a big thing and send it to, say, Jonathan Mayberry and say, can you just cut this in half and just have people just line stuff out? And that can help quite a bit. The other thing I will recommend is ChatGPT or any other AI. I have done a book description for Warpath where I'm like, I know this is too long, but I can't figure out what to get rid of. So I uploaded it to ChatGPT and I said, this is 500 words. Can you say the same thing in 250 words? And it gave back 250 words of pure garbage. But seeing what points it took out, I was like, okay, now I can rewrite this because it took me out of my head. It helped get rid of some of the things I felt had to be communicated. And I could see I didn't need all of that to communicate this, and went from there.
Yeah. And I will remind you guys, last week we talked about, well, Scott talked about this. If you are creators and you are looking to an AI or a chat GPT or something like that, for us at Empty Set, and I'm not saying this has to be your rule set, but our rule set is for us, he can look to AI to help craft, just like he said, this is my description. Can you trim this down or something? And then he has to go back through it and make it his own again with clarity. We don't use AI for anything that we would put as a public-facing consumable in any way, even if it's purchasable or free. Either way, those are not them. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't really help Scott clear out the noise, the buzz noise in his own head, the radio static in his own head, and help clarify.
As far as covers go, I got some really good advice for this. Number one, save your goddamn money. If you want good cover art, you have to go find good artists, and good artists do not come cheap. There's two ways to do a cover. There's a font treatment cover, and then there's actual art on the cover. Do not do the art yourself. Just prune that out of your brain right now. No, you can't do it. No, you're no good with clip art. No, you are no good with Photoshop. Unless you are a professional artist or a professional graphic artist who use this stuff on the regular, your art sucks. It just sucks. Don't use it for your cover, period. So I say save your money, because if you find an artist you like, you can work with an artist. Like we just tried to work with Len Peralta on a cover, who's one of our favorite artists. But Len said, for what you are asking, it will cost this much. And I'd tap out. I'm like, yeah, man, you're worth it. I can't afford that. So if you go back to the font treatment covers, now here's where the marketplace has changed, which we'll get into in Deep Cuts in a little bit. Deep Cuts.
I was just going to say, we're going to talk about this.
This. Yeah. And a short answer then is you always have to imagine your book cover at the size of a postage stamp on a screen. And if you can't read the title of the book and the author name, that cover is garbage in today's marketplace and economy. So if you have to play the font, the title so big and the author name so big, just make it those two things. Put a little extra treatment on that. That is a great way that you can go find a graphic artist who usually costs less than what do you call the people like to paint
like
a portrait?
Fiverr or
No, like who paints a portrait and who lays out a book cover. Like there's a different term. Anyways,
like fine artist versus
fine
a
artist.
graphic designer.
A graphic artist there are more graphic artists available, and the rates are lower than a fine artist who's creating original pieces of art for you. That is my answer. Just do font treatment covers for the first 5 books, and then don't worry about it and go from there.
Do you want a personal question? Do you want a Slay question? Do you want a GFL question?
You pick.
All right, a couple of personal questions came in. This one is we have to co-answer this, but she's asked very nicely several times. Her name is Carolyn Kitten, and she says, for A and maybe Scott, does Scott wake up in the middle of the night with wild ideas and drive you crazy because he wakes you up? Does his mind ever, ever, ever shut off? His mind seems a little nuts considering all the books, but they're awesome. Don't misunderstand that. So I'm going to answer first.
Okay.
And say, Scott would rather die than wake me up in the middle of the night with an idea. I have terrible sleep hygiene. I've talked about that 1,000 times on this cast. Scott protects me mostly at all costs in our private life. But that said, do you wake up with story ideas in the middle of the night? And if you do, what happens?
Every goddamn night. It's either a story idea or it's a song idea or it's a chunk of melody. And most of the time I am able to convince myself, oh, this is the jam. This is going to make me so much money. It's fucking perfection. I will remember this when I wake up tomorrow. Then I go back to sleep and I wake up and I know I had $1 million idea.
Wait, you know that part. You know, oh
yeah.
God, I had it.
Yep. I wake up. I'm like, if it's a song idea, I'm like, everyone in the world will hum this. This is straight up, Billie Eilish melody. Like it's that catchy kind of a thing. And then I wake up like, I should have wrote that down. If it's a story idea, it's also very similar, but I will text myself. I'll wake up in the middle of the night and text myself. Story ideas, I find the stuff I wake up with that is brilliant while I'm sleeping. When I look at it in the morning, I'm like, ham sandwich with a skunk tail? What the fuck does this mean? And I don't know. Then I just delete it. And I do have a habit though of when we are in our cups late in the evening and we watch, right now we're watching The Last of Us, which we're finding to be absolutely fantastic. I get a lot,
bitches, no spoilers.
I get a lot of story ideas while I'm watching that stuff, and I'll pause it and I'll say, what about this? And A will be like, yeah, that doesn't do anything. Or she'll say, okay, just text that to me. Or she'll say, text that to yourself. And I will text that to myself and I can look at it the next day and be like, that's got legs. Those ideas then go into our Ninux database. Ninux is the name of a software application, database software. And we have hundreds of things, hundreds of story ideas. And we go over those story ideas when I get invited to do a short story. And then I go through and usually find them.
So there is a secondary question, but I'm going to ask this one in the chat room because it's quite similar from Tyler Miller on YouTube. What book of yours would you like to see as a movie?
Well, depends on the day. Depends on what my favorite show of all time is that particular week. Right now, I would love to see Infected as a show because watching how well done The Last of Us is and the creativity they bring. Zombie apocalypse stories have been around for 50, 60 years. There's not a lot of new things to mine out of that situation. That mine is very played out. You can see great movies where I've seen all of these elements before. They just repeat them in a different way with different actors and everybody brings something different to the table. But watching The Last of Us do some things I haven't really seen before in an apocalyptic story, in addition to the usual tropes, has Infected on my mind. Right now, though, by and large, the one I want to see is Slay. I would love to see Slay adapted, particularly as an anime, because Blue Eye Samurai has stuck with me since I saw episode 1. It's magnificent storytelling, fantastic art, really, really gory, and I would like to see Slay done in that style. Hey, Chris Grawl.
Hey, Chris Grawl, we just showed your pretty book at the top of the hour. So Gerald Sherman, similarly, this is about you as a person and a novelist. Mm-hmm. Gerald Sherman says, as a novelist with a successful and self-sustaining career, what advice would you give your 2006 self? I remember that married guy working a full-time job and trying to get published by a big to capitalize on your 2005 Dragon Con Press Earthcore publication. I believe that is Dragon Moon Press.
Dragon Moon Press, correct.
But Dragon Moon Press Earthcore publication. At the end of the day, what is the secret to your success today?
Okay, the secret to my success today and the secret to my success in 2006. Let me answer the first part of the question first. The advice I would give myself to my 2006 self, you guys won't like this, would be to not write the GFL.
That's okay.
To not write the GFL, to wind up being committed to what I thought was a 6-novel, 3-novella series, which has now become a 6-novella, 9-novel series that flat out has not sold as well as my non-football, non-spacey type stuff. The amount of novels I could have written that are more in the vein of Stephen King or Mallerman or the people who are all killing it right now in the horror space, and I could be in a completely different financial, social structure right now if I had stuck with things like Infected. So the advice I would give myself in 2006 is your pretty precious special idea might not have the big legs you think it does. There's a lot to be said for write 10 novels in this style that you like before you get to any really long-reaching series. Doesn't count trilogies. If you're writing fantasy or horror and you want a trilogy, publishers love that shit. So that'd probably be the biggest thing.
That's interesting. I didn't know that would come in there. Okay. Let me find another GFL question. 'Cause
Okay.
I think they're relevant. Here we go. Jason Lombardo, this has been asked quite a lot, you guys. So if I'm not specifically calling out your question, I understand that this has been asked quite a lot. Jason Lombardo and many others ask, I ask the likelihood of the timeline to the conclusion of the GFL series, be it if at all, and if so, where and when. Also, will there be any more full seasons of GFL football?
We don't have a timeline for finishing the series. I do know it is $9. It will not be $10. Book 7 is in final draft stage. A and I need to sit down and go over that and hammer out all of the points on that. So that is very close to being in production. We have issues right now where we've got commitments to Athon Publishing, who's doing the Crypt series. Got commitments for Warpath, which is an Alcon Entertainment property. So there's things we have to get done before we get to that. And the Slay podcast has had surprising benefits for us that we can't really talk about. So continuing on with that and keeping the podcast going is a high priority for us. So getting GFL Book 7, which has been in final draft mode for a while, we don't know when we're going to get to that. And then we have to write 2 more books after that. So we can't say when those are going to happen. So we do not have a deadline for when we'll finish GFL, hopefully before I die. But absolutely now I know exactly how I've known how that series is going to end for 25 years, maybe 30 years now. I know how it's going to end. It's bonkers and it's crazy. Hopefully we get to it.
Similarly, and kind of in the GFL universe, Ollie Kirby in the Facebook chat room is asking a cross property question. So also this is GFL and Nocturnal. The question is it possible that Q could be a firstborn? This could explain how he sees things before they happen.
I cannot answer that question at this time.
What?
I cannot answer that. Senator, depends on what the meaning of is. I can neither confirm nor deny any of this information at this time. That's all I can say.
All right. Tyler Miller asks, in your opinion, which book of yours is the best to start with if you're a new reader?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Based on the timeline of the Siglerverse, I think Infected remains the best one to start with. Because if you read Infected and you don't put it down and say, I can't handle the cursing, I can't handle the gore, I can't handle the violence, can't handle the desperation of all these things, then you're going to be fine. There is nothing beyond Infected that is going to bother you, with the exception of the Crypt Book 2. The Crypt Book 2 is a new benchmark for, people asking me what the fuck is wrong with you is going to go to a completely new level with Crypt Book 2. But you have to read Crypt Book 1, read Crypt Book 2. So therefore, I think Infected is the best place for everybody to start.
I would have actually said the same thing. I think Infected is set as a set piece. There is kind of a whiz-bang beginning. There is a denouement and an ending. It kind of works really well. It's got character-driven development, all that stuff. I was not ready for this answer, though.
It's because, right now, there are reviews on Amazon and Audible where people have read Slay and being like, this is bullshit. He's so much better than this. This is so ridiculous. You guys need to go read GFL. You need to read Infected, all these other things. Because Slay's body and blue and out there, as well as being violent, as well as having, really solid character arcs and character development. But if you read through Infected and you don't have a problem with any of that shit, you're going to love all of my stuff. So that is absolutely the place to start. If you start with, say, Alive and then go back and read Infected, you may be surprised that is not the same thing.
Terrific. We're going to ask a very short question for me. Mike Kasmerick asks, can we get more gray or white color choices in the Krakens and or other T-shirts at scottsigler.com in the store? And I will say absolutely yes. We have about a week before the NFL season starts in the United States, and it's easy to add extra colors. I will do that to already existing designs that I will not need to change the color of the designs just to add more colors, I will do that. But if you have a specific request, you can always email it to info@emptyset.com. Like, I would like a white t-shirt that has red and black orbiting death or whatever. And we can work on that if we have time.
Yeah.
We don't have that skill set. We have to send it to a graphic designer to do, but we can do that. It's not terribly hard. So we'll do that if you ask.
I will say, pertaining to the previous question, a lot of people use Earth Core as a book to turn people onto my work. I'm all for that. Earth Core also has, if you can get through the Kayla Meyer stuff, if you can get through the end of Earth Core, you're going to be fine with anything that I read. The reason I bring up Infected is in the Siglerverse timeline, Infected has Easter eggs in it if you have read the Infected trilogy that otherwise you're just going to miss if you just start with Earth Core. So that's why Infected's the best place to start. It sets a bar for your sensibilities and your tastes and your tolerances. And then by the time you get to Earth Core after that, you're great. But if you want to start someone in Earth Core, fuck yes, by all means, get that shit done.
So I have a little series of sleigh questions that I'm going to go into right now. There are 4 of them right now. One of them is quick, which is from Sean Dyer. Are there any particular elements that you want to call out as primarily being Rob or Scott's contribution to the story? Or is it all commingled at this point and it's tough to find a part still that's like that?
It is. The last part of your question is accurate. Rob and I can't remember who came up with the vast majority of it. Outside of the initial concept of if you want a person dead, you hire a hitman. If you want a monster dead, you hire Lincoln Franks. Outside of that and the setup of Magda, Lincoln and Magda and like Lincoln's dad and brother and sister are pretty much the only things I'm like, I know those are my things. And brother and sister as placeholders, right? I wrote a pilot script for a 1-hour episode of Slay. Got Jacoby in there. So basically when Lincoln goes to the old folks home, sees Jacoby, sees Sophia, sees Lucas, that was all the script I used to start the beginning of book 1. After that, honestly, I don't fucking know, man. I don't know most of the stuff. I have no idea.
And I will give you guys a weird Easter egg that I can't reference a single point to, but I know they were outlining Slay. I know they were outlining Slay when we were on the writing retreat in Michigan. My job is like dorm mom / cook there. And when I was making breakfast or lunch or something and they were working, we are in close proximity to each other. And I heard Robbie say, but that's kind of like, and the schnozberries taste like schnozberries. And Scott said, yeah, no, you're right. Okay. And I can't tell you what that was referencing. I don't know what that Willy Wonka thing referenced in Slay, but I absolutely heard it. And I love that.
Pause to save, record.
So that is a weird thing that I've held on to this whole time. Like, I can't tell you what they were talking about because I'm not paying attention to their work. I'm doing my own job. I have, my normal job to do, and then I am still taking care of us, like food and whatnot and all that jazz. But I remember Robbie going, and this is one of those schnozberry, tastes like schnozberry moments. And every time I listen to an episode of Slay, I'm like, is this the schnozberry moment? And now we've been through 2 books, and I think I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I can't remember.
But it was definitely there. So another one. How has this is from Jeff Eckelberg.
Okay.
How has this Slay storyline affected other stories you write? Are there any elements that have crossed over, like character or environmental features, emotional or location similarities? ? I can't help but think something like the showing of black matter based on the book by Blake Crouch. I don't know what that is. Where the character crossed paths with versions of himself in and from other realities? Or is this just another layer that would be exponentially more complex to the Siglerverse?
Slay is not part of the Siglerverse. Slay is its own property. You may potentially see some crossover with Hunter Henderson and Sons because they are operating in the same space. And there is a very brief crossover between Earth Core and Slay in season 1 of Slay. And I won't tell you what it is. You have to go find it. But by and large, these are separate properties. The Siglerverse is not supernatural. There are not vampires, ghosts, goblins, demons, all of those things. Slay is that. So the only crossovers you're going to see are almost like pop culture crossovers. Like when I wrote a Nocturnal crossover with the Joe Ledger series by Jonathan Mayberry. That's not canon in either series. It's just fun. So you may see some fun stories in the future, but any fun stories that cross over Slay and the GFL or the Siglerverse, they are not canonical.
Okay, the last Slay question is from Just a Joe. Why was there no talk of having Delilah try to go back to Teddy's dream and get the secret to the shelf out of him? I was expecting a scene where she says something about it's too dangerous and Lincoln loses his cool and is all slap one of those gaunts and send me on my way. I'm in kind of things.
It's maybe a cop-out answer is it's too complicated for that, but Teddy's mind is absolutely fried at this point. Just because he is able to operate within the context of nightmares that he was a part of creating or nightmares that he had doesn't mean you can tap into any part of his intellect, any part of his recall, any part of his memory. He is an incredibly damaged person at this point. He will never be able to have a conversation with anybody ever again. He's the guy in the insane asylum who somebody else has to clean up the drool. He's that far gone because that's how powerful Delilah is. Delilah burned his brain to the ground.
So you said he can't have a conversation. Could he answer a question like, would you like oatmeal or would you like eggs?
Probably not.
That is that level of conversation. He cannot respond to a question.
He can't respond to a question. He is catatonic. Oof. He can't, at this point in the context of the story, he can't take care of his own bodily functions. He's in a diaper. He's got to be cleaned up. He just sits there. He sits there and suffers these nightmares over and over and over again. And the only moment of clarity he has is to, between nightmares, realize he just came from a nightmare. He's going to another nightmare. And the nightmare he's going to, he will not realize that is a nightmare. Mm-hmm. He will experience that for real. So he's absolutely in hell, and he shouldn't have fucked with the Dromans. Shouldn't have fucked with the Dromans, bro. That's all I can tell you.
So you guys have had a lot of questions about me/us specifically. I'm going to ask a few of those. Tyler Miller in the YouTube chat room says, what is my favorite book? What is A's favorite book? My favorite Scott Sigler story remains Red Man. It's a short story. That's my favorite thing that Scott has ever written. It's moving in a very human way. I get all verklempt doing this every time because I am also a person who designed drugs for a living, and that's very relevant to that story. It kills me every time I think about it. That said, and this also pains me to say in a totally different way,
I think I know what this one is.
I love Slay for how ridiculous and goofy it is. And, oh, my dog is very worried because I got her. She's very worried because I'm tearing up. It's okay.
Here we go.
And Slay is bawdy in a way that I am not, and sassy in a way that I am not publicly. But I love it because it's also very character-driven and human. So if you're asking me specifically about Scott Sigler books, Red Man, no question, my favorite thing that Scott has ever written. There are some things in the Kissy Man stories that I love. And I love Slay in the humanity of it, which is strange to say since it's about goblins and gnomes and everything else.
I have to say, the scenes in Slay where when Billy is upset or even crying and Dragon comes running into the room and licks his face is absolutely this dog, you know, the old 70s term. This dog right here who was sitting there minding her own business and then
yeah, she heard
her radar went off. She's like, Mother's upset. I must go tend to Mother and assure her everything's going to be fine. And she shot into the room and now is, if we weren't on camera, she would just lick A's face for 30 minutes and then everything would be fine.
Yeah, she doesn't care if I'm crying from a good cry or a bad cry. She doesn't care at all. Now, if you're not asking me about Scott Sigler books, I will say for years and years, my favorite book was a book called Winter's Tale by Mark Halperin. I am a Gen Xer, so that's quite an old book. I also love Pete Hamill's Forever. I believe those are bookends. Those are a duology from different authors. And I love magical realism, but I haven't read magical realism since Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So that's for me.
Okay, we need to get through these questions, and we need to be done. Also, this is my fault. We forgot to put in the ad break in the middle, so we're just going to have to wing it. We'll have to wing it.
That's okay.
So let's get through the rest of the questions, and we got whole deep cuts to do.
Yep. So we've got a couple of.
We got through
we
some
had
of those.
3 more minutes.
Okay, go.
Yeah. So we have a couple more, and these I'm just going to close out as Crypt and GFL questions because they're sort of related. We have from Daryl Harris. We have 2 Crypt questions. The first one is, did the Crypt actually, quote unquote, talk to Bethany at one point?
Okay, so hold on. I got to make sure I'm in the right camera here. I can't answer that question this time, Senator. I can neither confirm nor deny that has happened, and that is all I will say about that.
Okay, his second question is, will the PUV James Keeling show up in the GFL series?
I can neither confirm nor deny that question, Senator, and I believe you should refer your further inquisitions to my legal counsel.
Okay, so I had a whole process here. My question that was leading me into the GFL, Kate Hargraves asks, this is a little bit long, but bear with me.
Okay.
I am re-listening to the GFL series as it's being repodcasted on Realm. If you guys want to listen, it's being repodcasted on realm.fm. You can go find that in whatever your pod feeder is.
You can search for GFL or Galactic Football League wherever you listen to podcasts, and the whole series is unfolding in that place right now.
In the middle of re-listening to the All-Pro, it struck me that you started writing this series before social media became what it is today. The character of Somali Midori especially is one that I would imagine would have been an influencer, using social media extensively to increase her popularity and to break into acting.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other characters or story details that you think would be significantly different if the series was written with a social media bent having become present before what it is now?
That's a fascinating question because social media is now such a pivotal part of a professional athlete's life, and college athletes, particularly at the D1 at the high level. Look at Caitlin Clark, for example, in the WNBA, who's had a phenomenal rookie season, was a media phenomenon in her final year at Iowa, where she was breaking a lot of scoring records. If I wrote the series over again today, I don't think I could ignore that aspect of things for Quentin. That is something that he would have to deal with. It wasn't that media attention and public attention wasn't there when I started writing the Galactic Football League, but by and large, especially someone like Quentin, who clearly has said shit in the past when he was in the Purist Nation that would not truck well at all in the larger galactic sphere. That stuff would have to come out in a story in some regard. So yeah, I think there definitely would be changes. Yeah.
All right. Our last question for the Q&A for Slay Book 2 is from David Lamb. And he says, do you think that the GFL or the Siglerverse could ever suffer from this mythology exhaustion problem that exists for movie franchises that are 45 years plus or more old?
We're literally already suffering from that. That is why I'll tell you the reason we're suffering, and then I'll tell you what we're going to do about it. The reason we're suffering is I have to do an inordinate amount of research on my own work, and we have to have Big John Viscara there to help. So my brain's not suited to keep track of all this catalog of information and all these interconnections. So to write something new in the GFL, we make sure we go back and that it doesn't conflict with anything else in the GFL to the best of our ability. That adds several cycles to every first draft, second draft, third draft, and final draft. It bogs down our business. So what we're going to do about that is we finish the GFL, we finish the Crypt, we finish Slay, which is tangentially related because Slay is in the context of Slay. And then, by and large, I think the golden years of my career are going to be writing single individual novels that are much better suited for adaptation, for movies or streaming or whatever comes next, for graphic novels, comic books. Because getting to start from scratch without having any baggage or anchors on you is much more liberating as a creator. And I can really lean into characters when I do that, not as much into, I have to make sure that all the freeways and back roads and all the connecting roads, everything lines up, and it takes a lot of work. So I'm all for, Marvel has had a difficult time of it. I understand why Star Wars just threw in the towel and started over. They just threw in the towel, like, fuck it, we're just doing our own thing now, because they just couldn't create as much if they were honest to everything they'd done before.
And for people like us, we're not going to want to go and well, we can't get people who are 40 years younger than us to engage with the things that we loved for good reason.
Yeah.
And we won't engage with what they're doing or what they're watching for good reason.
And that's a great point. That puts a burden on the customer too. Like I set up the Siglerverse so that if you want to be fucking delighted with all these crazy connections and you want to be a crazy comic book nerd like me and go like, oh snap, is that guy from that? Oh my God, I can't believe these are connected. You want those moments of delight. Those moments of delight are there. I intentionally did not set up the Siglerverse like you have to read 17 novels before you read this new property called the Bingalabang effect. You know, like, can't read this, they read all those, because it's a time burden. It's a financial burden. And I'm not trying to make people work. I'm trying to entertain people. So eventually we're going to probably 5 years is the plan. And we're going to tap out and write a bunch of just crazy horror novels.
So this is the end of the Q&A for Slay Book 2, written by Scott Sigler and Rob Otto. We encourage you to go back and listen to the entire podcast. This podcast and audiobook will eventually be available wherever you listen to podcasts or audiobooks.
Yep, that is correct. Couple last second questions. John Bivens asked, what happened to the front door shitbirds? We had some birds on our porch at our condo in La Jolla, California. The birds have flown the coop. One of them may have died. We don't know. Can't say for sure. And do you, Scott Sigler, benefit from us listening to the podcast over listening to the audiobooks? We don't care. We don't care. We make X amount if you get our book on Audible as a credit. We make X amount if you buy our book on Audible. We make X amount if you listen through all of the podcasts. We are not asking you how you want to consume the work. If you are consuming the work and you are happy and you are not pirating the work, that's all we care about. We just want you guys, we just want you to be happy. We're looking out for you all the time. Don't worry about us. We'll be fine sitting here in the dark. Don't mind us. We're good.
So we will be back next week with Deep Cut. We will be back next week with Death is Black.
Episode number 1. We don't know what story we're reading yet, but we'll get that shit figured out.
We can't wait to see you there.
Okay. Good to see you guys. We are... Good night. Bye. Shit. I didn't have a good ending there.
That's okay. We'll figure it out. We might have to re-record it. So we are moving on to Deep Cuts.
Oh, the ending. Yeah. Let's move on to Deep Cuts.
So Deep Cuts, of course, you guys in the in-between before we do this intro, I know a lot of you have asked for intro music for Deep Cuts.
What?
Oh my God.
People want intro. They want a sounder or something? I was unaware of this.
Well, I know. I was trying to tell them and not tell you.
Yeah, I see.
A lot of people have asked for that. Not today.
All right, we're going
to work on it when he finishes a couple.
We're getting into Deep Cuts right now. You guys have been with us for an hour. This is going to be an examination of what we do in the publishing space. If you want to stay for it, that's fantastic. If you don't, you can pick up the podcast later on. It's all good. However you want to slice it, you're fabulous. And you all smell an awful lot like flowers.
And before we hit record on Deep Cuts, if you guys still have remaining questions that haven't been answered, please email them to info@emptyset.com because we have lots and lots of Q&As. We fit them in at the end of some Deep Cuts. We do them as their whole own episode. So whenever you have a question, just email it.
And I'm going to adjust your mic for 1 second. Bring this up a smidgen. Bear with us, guys. I can't pick this up. This way.
Oh, why does Fitzroy not have the transition sounds? Because it doesn't belong to us. That's interesting. I didn't even realize that.
Fitzroy isn't. Oh, yeah, that's right. It doesn't belong to us.
It doesn't belong to us. Yeah.
So turn this a little more. So like.
Does this sound better?
Yeah, like when you talk, if your lips are sort of like you feel some contact a little bit, I think that might be part of what we're working on.
Yeah, like this is fine for me, but I had to like every time before just now I would have to kind of even just a little lean down to do it, and then that looks weird.
Let's try this.
Yeah, let's try this.
You ready to roll?
I am.
Okay, let's get that.
You have your.
I do. I do, darling. I do. Why isn't that not coming up? What is happening? Give me a sec, babe. Logic is not making itself shown. Window.
Is it over here?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Open. There we go. Okay.
Turn off the transition. Oh, you got them.
Yeah, we're good. And here we go. Oh, hey, it's so easy to publish a book that's an ebook and also an audiobook and also a print book. And it's also on Amazon. It's also in stores. And also we track sales and also pay contractors and also vendors and also editors and also cover artists. And then also police contracts and also track royalties and also do the marketing and the advertising and the social media and go to cons and do live streams and oh yeah, and also write the goddamn books.
Yes. Yes. There are so many things that go into this game. I'm going to break it down into the basics of what a publisher does on this episode of Deep Cuts. FDO, do you want to come with me?
Yes, I do. I'm going to do my intro thing now. Hey, y'all, welcome to Deep Cuts, the bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices Fiction Podcast, where a sci-fi author and an audiobook narrator discuss things and stuff in the world of writing and content creation. I am Scott Sigler, sci-fi horror author known far and wide as the future Dark Overlord.
And I am A.B. Sigler. I'm an audiobook narrator. And on this episode of Deep Cuts, we are going to talk about the role of the publisher in fiction in real time. We're going to explain the publisher's role today in the journey of a book from manuscript to market.
A reminder to those listening at home, this is a bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices feed. It is not part of any particular tale. Listen if you'd like. We would love to have you, but there's nothing in this episode you need to keep track of to enjoy the stories.
Okay, so moving right into it, we are the smallest publisher one can be.
Pretty much.
We are, pretty much.
Second smallest,
The
I guess.
second smallest.
Yeah.
I guess somebody can do it all on their own. But we're going to talk to you about why you need a checks and balances system. And so we call ourselves kind of a bridge publisher. We don't really know what to call ourselves, but we're a bridge publisher because we sign traditional contracts with traditional Big Five publishers, which I think might be Big Four publishers in the United States right now. And we also publish our own books starting at manuscript until publication and consumption as a product.
Yep.
And we're going to kind of talk about how we go through both of those processes with Scott as our fiction creator. So, publishing defined is a publisher is an individual, an organization, or a company responsible for producing and distributing printed or digital content to the public.
Okay.
Publishers bring books, magazines, newspapers, journals, long-form audio, live audio, full cast audio, and other forms of literature to readers.
It's pretty broad. It's a pretty broad concept, right? I mean, with us, it's narrower, but we're much broader than a typical publisher, right?
100%. And I think also publishing has gotten quite a bit broader in the Wild and West years in the last maybe 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
That I think got a little bit sort of hijacked and hamstrung by the pandemic. Like anything goes because there's no paper, so what else can we do? And that actually grew our industry, but without regulation.
So let me go through publisher roles. Now, you wrote these down, but I'm going to read them off so you guys get an understanding of the amount of work that goes into doing this job. And this is the stuff that is not the actual writing of the books. Acquisition of titles. What content are we bringing? Who are we going to publish? What are we going to put out? Editing and proofreading. So once you get that title in, who goes through and reads through it? Who helps the artist modify the story so it's a better story? Who proofreads it to make sure there's not little mistakes that take people out of the story? Who proofreads it to make sure there's not giant continuity errors in the whole thing? Design and formatting. All of that has to happen, whether it's an ebook, it's a print book, it has to look a certain way. Production and printing. Distribution. No matter what format of the story you're listening to, it has to be taken out to the marketplace by one mechanism or another. Then marketing and promotion, and also included in that the whole kit and caboodle, rights management. Those are just some of the things that you do.
Absolutely. And well, we do. And what we're going to focus on for sure is, tonight anyway, because we only have like 30 minutes, is we're going to focus on post-manuscript exception through distribution. So once the manuscript has been accepted by any publisher who is going to do any amount of work, including you yourself if you're going to do that all. Once you put down the manuscript and say, this has been accepted, we're moving into production, we're going to go through manuscript acceptance.
Keep going, you're fine.
To distribution. And distribution right now in 2024 can be digital only, can be print only, can be very many different options there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For those of you listening at home, if you heard that noise, I just spilled some scotch because not only are we a small publisher, we have a very small desk that we do this recording at, and sometimes accidents will happen. All right, continue, baby.
So, as Scott said, there are several roles that a publisher has. Today, we're going to focus on editing and proofreading, design and formatting, production and printing, and then distribution a little bit.
Okay.
First, we're going to talk about editing and proofreading. Publishers absolutely have to own the content that they publish. And I know this because Scott and I published a print book that had typos in the print book that we couldn't afford to reprint, and we had to live with the consequences of. So I learned very much the hard way that you hire somebody who doesn't love you to do
the editing
and the proofreading.
So you're saying, like, don't get my mom, who is a grade school teacher and knows grammar, don't get my mom to go through the thing. Hire somebody who can be mean. You pay money to people who can be mean to you to get the best product.
Yeah, and also, like, the way we started working together is I enjoyed your books and was a thoughtful, erudite person to your kind of mindset. And you were like, hey, do you want to help me do this? And I was like, yeah, I'm smart enough. I can do this. And guess what? We're both smart people, and neither one of us should have done that.
We were not. We, after 20 years, we're still not ready, frankly. All right,
yeah.
What do we got?
So you hire a professional or you barter services. If you are a person who can do, like Scott could do a critique of a manuscript. If somebody is good, because many people in this realm right now, in this industry right now, they make their living, they pay their rent, they pay their mortgage by being proofreaders or copy editors or just general editors or formatters who make an ebook or a print book or whatever, but they're also writers. So you can still barter services. That still exists, and there are many digital marketplaces that do that. Very many, if you belong to a critique group, that will do that and barter services. So you can either do it that way, or you can outright save money and hire a proofreader, an editor, anything like that. There are two types of editors. The first one is just an editor, and the second one is a copy editor. A copy editor will talk about your story, where you're going, where you're headed, what you want to accomplish with this draft. And that person is kind of your partner in crime. They're kind of your...
a story editor the person who helps me modify the story, and a copy editor the one who goes through the copy, like a grammatical and proofreading and things?
So, what to your mind, yes. But if you're hiring that in the marketplace and you don't know those people, generally speaking, a copy editor can do one of two things, but almost primarily helps you craft the story you want to tell.
Okay.
Hey, I want this guy to be the villain, so I'm going to introduce this earlier or whatever. And they say, no, it's way too early for that. Can you just set up all these things? That's a copy editor who gives you the beats of the story.
Okay.
And will help you cut out the detritus that can go in a different book or is just superfluous or anything like that.
Got it.
An editor says, hey, yesterday you woke up in Milwaukee and today you woke up in Sydney, Australia. That doesn't make any sense. You have to explain
by you,
that.
You mean in the book, the characters?
Yeah. Or you as the author have had the characters wake up on day one in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the United States, and then on day two, without any explanation, be in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
Like what you're calling a copy editor, but is also just an editor in general, will point out the discrepancy of that without telling you how to fix it. A copy editor or a story editor will help you say, this doesn't make any sense. The characters can't do this. You didn't say they were shapeshifters. You didn't say they were any of this. You can't have them do this.
So again, that goes back to my earlier statement. When we hire editors, we're hiring people who can be mean to us. Being mean means, hey, I know you've got 20,000 words on this plot line, but it doesn't make any sense, and you probably are best off cutting it. Your Auntie Jenna is not going to tell you that. Your boobula in your book group is not going to tell you that. Someone you're paying
Your
money
number
to.
one fan.
Yep, not going to tell you that. So people are going to be mean to you, which makes for a better story, is a very valuable thing that you can spend money for.
Yeah, and I will be very plain spoken and say, I didn't show up and say to Scott, I'm your number one fan. I can help you. I just showed up and kind of gave him a little bit of sass about his scheduling. And he was like, cool, do you have any interest in doing this? And both of us thought that was enough. But what was enough is me being able to say, this doesn't make it, like me being objective and harsh. And I didn't have either one of those. So you should not hire your Auntie Jen. You should not hire a friend of yours. You should almost assuredly not hire an alpha or beta fan. You should save money and pay somebody to do that.
So we have hired an editor. We turned in a manuscript. An editor helped us make the best story it can be. Checks and balances, going through checking the storylines, checking the continuity, checking grammar, all those other things. And that gets us into proofreading. Are we including proofreading or do we move on now?
Yeah. So it's both things. So Scott had in the Infected trilogy had the grace of having the same story editor for the entire trilogy. The same person read and stayed with him for that entire through line of that storyline. He had different copy editors who checked the grammar, checked the continuity of that story, and he absolutely had different proofreaders. Proofreaders are what we all think of as quote unquote editors. If you're a layperson, I also think of that as an editor. A proofreader is literally just looking for typos, grammar, and the specifications for what it looks like if it's on a print page or in print in general. I'll say digitally. If you can look at that page, it should look a similar way.
Correct.
And that's a proofreader.
Okay.
And that person is an entry-level copy editor for sure, and they can note weird things, but their big job is to say, hey, you didn't put a period here, you put 1,000 hyphens here, you should really use a comma here, those sorts of things.
Yes, and a quick interjection there. There are certain industry standards for the way things should be laid out on a page and the way things should be said. The Chicago Manual of Style is the primary resource that all of these proofreaders go through, and therefore like, well, you said this and you're using a comma when it should be a semicolon. They go back to that particular thing. So there's industry standards involved in some of these things to get us to the point where the manuscript is done and moves on to the next phase.
And one weird note, in the publishing industry for books and fiction, the industry standard is the Chicago Manual of Style. If you are reading a newspaper or reading a transcript from a news program or a television program, that is the Associated Press Manual of Style. So if you are editing your own books, use the Chicago Manual of Style because that looks normal to fiction editors if you submit that manuscript. You can't just say, well, I followed the AP Manual of Style. They don't care. And I will tell, like for 4 o'clock and also for 9 years old, the AP and the Chicago Manual of Style disagree. So you want to use the CMS and not the AP.
Okay, so that's editing. So the author creates a story. Then we move into editing and proofing to make the story the best it can be, make sure the story is accurate, make sure the story fits the specifications that are expected by the marketplace. What happens then?
So then you move from editing and proofreading. Once you have a fully proofread manuscript, you move into, it's a bifurcated thing, but the next thing you move into is design and formatting for your visual copies, and that is your digital ebook and your print copy. And design and formatting is graphic design if you want any kind of artwork at the beginning, the first letter of every chapter, if you want design elements that go from the front matter to the back matter, if you want design elements that go from the front cover to the front matter to the first signature, the first letter of a book, which I think is called the first sigil of a chapter, which is the first character in a chapter, in case it has a design element. You want to do that. That's a designer. That is a graphic designer or a typesetter who will do that and make sure that that happens. They will make sure your type is set for your footnotes, for your bibliography, for your front matter, which is your dedication. All of that has the same typography. That's a thing you have to consider.
Can I throw in a little history here?
Yeah.
So the word typesetter comes from the original days of the first printing presses, where each letter was a separate thing that had to be laid into a tray. You had to set the type down into a big tray so that an ink roller could roll over that whole setup page and then a piece of paper could be pressed down on it, and another roller would roll over that to pick up the ink from the metal letters that were type set. And that is how individual pages of a book used to be made. And now we're in a completely different world. It's all pagination and computers, but it's the history of printing. If you're a nerd like us, it's pretty goddamn fascinating how far it's come in the last 200 years.
For sure. And I will also say that there, in addition, in the last 200 years, there has been lots and lots of automation that happens for self-publishers, for small publishers like we are. So you can now go to Amazon and upload your Microsoft Word document. And Amazon will make that into a saleable ebook. I will challenge you, if you want to just continue on your route as an author, don't just let Amazon say, yeah, we'll publish this. Make sure you have had it spell checked. Make sure you have had it proofread. Make sure you have had it copy edited. Make sure you have had it story edited.
Correct.
Do all of that, because the formatting that Amazon will do for your ebook from your Microsoft Word document isn't what somebody who knows what a book is supposed to look like, even an ebook is supposed to look like, will do for you. And now we're in this weird hybrid world of digital and print, where you can go to a print publisher, a big five publisher, and say, look at all these things I've done. And the more professional those look, the easier it is to pick you up.
Very, very important. We have to take a short commercial break. I'm sorry. Let's fix that. We have to take a short break. We'll be right back after this. So we are at printing and production. If you want to set a timer, or I can keep track for you as you're doing the heavy lifting today.
We're a little bit early, but yes.
I got it right here, babe.
Okay, that's cool. Give me just a sec. I was just not ready to quite do it then.
And you guys, this is how the sausage gets made. This is so much better. I hope this works out for the editing, but as soon as you dial in close to that mic, this sounds great. These pop filters are very
I know,
excellent.
And they're so fun. This is my favorite color. That's Scott's favorite color. How weird, because that's not a normal green. That's not a normal orange. That's so fun. So I'm ready to go for 20 whenever you are.
Oh, actually, you know what? Let me stop. Save. And this is what we do with our books, too. I save all the time, and And welcome back to Deep Cuts, where we talk about all things in the world of fiction writing and audiobook narration.
This week, we are chatting about the role of publisher in fiction. This week, we're talking about the role of a publisher in fiction publishing, the publisher's role in the journey of a book from manuscript to market.
Great.
So now we're going to move on from design and formatting to production and printing. And production and printing has changed so much in the time that we have been working together, and will probably change just as much in the next 12 months. Things are changing absolutely every day.
Every day.
In the post-pandemic world, I'll say. So publishers manage the production process, which includes coordinating printing companies and digital production outlets and teams. And teams, I say, because if you're doing an ebook, that might be a one-person job. If you're doing an audiobook, that is almost assuredly not a one-person job. There's the talent who records it. There's the engineer who masters it. It might be the engineer who edits it. We have our own sound engineer who does quite a lot of mastering and editing, but that's not always the case. And the bigger the company, the more people handle these tasks. So moving into what we'll call production and printing gets kind of big as we move forward. So for us, moving over time, when Scott first started publishing, when his first books came out in 2005, they were print only. That's it. That's all that existed. You could only buy the Dragon Moon Press versions of Earthcore and
Correct.
Ancestor in print. That was it.
That was it. Yep.
But you could buy Ancestor, I know, in print on Amazon.com. But
Right.
Amazon only had print books and products that you could buy.
That's how old we are. We started this out before ebooks were even a thing. We were competing against everybody in the world of print books on Amazon.
And then by the time that he and I start to work together in 2009, ebooks exist. And we are behind the eight ball and have to bring some of his catalog, his self-published catalog, into ebooks. But audiobooks don't exist. Books on tape exist, but audiobooks don't exist.
Digital audiobooks did not exist at that point. Books on tape are audiobooks, but the first downloadable or streamable or playable online audiobooks, we have been in the business since before those things happened, to the point where we tried to sell our podcast books to an Audible, a little baby Audible back in the day. And it did not work out because they were just so new and everything was new. So we've been around a long time. So that is what's framing the things you're talking about right now.
For sure. So when he first starts publishing, the only option is print. When we form Dark Overlord Media, which becomes Empty Set, the only options are print and potentially an app for the rookie.
Yeah, we had an app for that. That's right.
So we did that on smartphones in 2007. And then we move into both things. And this is actually a benefit for Empty Set, but we're still talking 2009, 2010. So 14 years ago. We have raw data, but it doesn't translate into something that books on tape can carry. And it doesn't really translate into something that we could upload in a small file format, which is a requirement for Audible or whatever. So this world, why I'm saying all of that is to say this world is actively changing even right now. So there are several things. From about 2012 to 2016, the big five, which I believe now are the big four in the United States, big five publishers, they don't care much about audiobooks because they don't see a pathway for sales or anything like that. So we were just making sure he made the best recording he could for podcasts or legacy things like that. Now, it's very different.
When we started, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm sorry, I misheard that because I was like, oh my God, did you just say that the big five don't care about audiobooks? But now I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
when we started out, we were able to get rights to audiobooks from Random House, from Penguin Random House, because like, yeah, we don't care about audiobooks. We'd be like, if you don't care, can we just have those back? And they just were like, sure, here you go, because they thought ebooks were where the money was at. And ebooks are a very lucrative, important part of publishing. But at this point in time, what's the cash cow right now?
Well, right now, the cash cow, absolutely, without question, is audio. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to negotiate audio for two reasons. Similarly to what happened between 2012 and 2014, which I was just talking about, which he just talked about, where the people that we were talking to on a day-to-day basis, they didn't know what they didn't know. Now we all don't know what what the other people want. Like, so now we're like, hey, we don't care. We'll record it. Can we still just podcast it? They're like, I can't talk about audio. Like they literally can't, it's above their pay grade. The people we deal with on a day-to-day level nervous. Kind of makes them nervous, and it's kind of above their pay grade because they don't want to promise a thing they can't deliver. And they don't want us to believe that we have made a deal that we haven't made. And Scott has made so many deals where he's like, yeah, can I have the audio? And they're like, sure, I just don't want to deal with it. Just take it. But that was 12 years ago.
So germane to A's point about how much things have changed. So we've gone through the point where ebooks didn't exist. We were here for that. We've navigated that. Then we move into the point where ebooks do exist, changes the market. Moved to the point where audiobooks were an afterthought that publishers didn't care about. We grabbed all the rights we could to our stuff. Now we're moving to the point where audiobooks are absolutely, that is the primary focus of every publisher, is the audiobook. They put out print books in order to facilitate publishing, in order to facilitate marketing, so people go get the audiobook. So audiobooks are king. And now, here come all of these people who are making full cast audio productions, selling 17 actors doing one title, a scripted production on Audible, on other formats in podcasting, where they can't sell a print book because a print book would just be a script. This is how fluid the marketplace is. So when A talks about trying to do her job and what it means to be a publisher in today's market, it's really difficult to even know what the hell that means.
Yeah, and in addition, they can't create a print version of that. They can create a digital because they can change it every time they learn something new. That's easy-ish. They can't create a print version, and they can't create a book tour. And if you're a person who looks like me, if you're a person about my age, you're all about the book tour. You're all about when are you going to get it back on the road? When can I get a signed copy? And I got to tell you, as much as I hate to say the words, I think eventually, maybe in the next 2 decades or so, a signed copy of a print book is going to be as likely as a signed copy of an 8-track or a VHS tape. That's what I think is happening. Because the reality is, I am used to, me personally, I'm quite used to every format of the book I want, which I often buy multiple copies of. I will order the print book. I absolutely want the audiobook, and I will get the ebook in case I'm on an airplane and I don't have headphones. I will get all 3 because it's no skin off my nose to do that. I'm in that place in my life. That's no longer the norm for the vast majority of people publishing books today.
Okay.
Now, the big 4 publishers and their biggest ticket items absolutely are going to have ebooks, audiobooks, and print books come out on the same day. And they may or may not have a tour in support of that, or they may have public appearances in support of that. But the reality is, a print book and an ebook take roughly the same amount of time to make. It takes time to print a book, but right now print on demand also is a huge thing.
That's another huge change in the marketplace. It's
so
huge.
That's a small window, right? The print and digital copy, the print and ebook copy take roughly about 3 weeks within each other's timeline, right, to finish that. The digital immediately available. The print book takes a few days to print and ship. The audiobook, a wildly different story.
Yes.
And what we used to do in this marketplace is we would hold all 3 of those things until they were all ready. But now the market doesn't bear that. Now the market says, if this book is ready and people are clamoring for it and I can make money right now, put the digital version of that out and put the print-on-demand version of that out, and we will get to the ebook, we will get to the audiobook when we get to the audiobook. Sometimes it's put the ebook version of that out and we're not putting anything else out. If they want it, they'll get it. Sometimes it's put the ebook, and if enough copies sell, we will make a print-on-demand version and we will make an audiobook version. But we have to know that the market will bear the cost of incurring these things. So it's a weird sort of Wild West for very small publishers like us right now.
Yeah. So now we've got, so we wrote a book. We hired people to be mean to us to make sure that book is the best it can possibly be. Then we went into the production of the book, ebook, audiobook, all the different formats that we are talking about. We make that book available. It's ready to be sold. It's ready to be sold to people. Now, what the fuck do we do to get that in front of... Now, before we let them know it's a thing, when we get to the marketing and let them know it's a thing, we want them to be like, oh my God, I need that. Scott Sigler is my jam. I need that book. They need to go to a place and be able to buy it immediately. That's called distribution?
It is, yep.
And what do we do for distribution?
That's kind of what I was just talking about. So distribution used to be on X day, on July 3rd, it's available no matter how you want to read it, no matter where you want to read it. You can go and get it. You can go to your bookstore. You can go to whatever digital ebook outlet you want. You can go to Audible. You can go wherever. You can read it however you want to read it. That doesn't exist the same way it used to anymore. Not every book is distributed in every single way. Okay. And not only that, sometimes distribution is staggered. It's often. And that is actually probably going to be the case for us moving forward.
So?
I do think so, because creating the digital ebook and the manuscript that gets printed in a print-on-demand way completely exists without having to do the audiobook. That is a whole cloth different thing that takes about 40 raw hours to record the audiobook.
And that's just recording. That's not just editing.
Precisely. So the question that becomes, and it's not just us, it is for sure us, because we're two people who have dedicated, beautiful coworkers and vendors, right? And contractors who work with us. But it's not just us. Often, I have read books that are digital that eventually become, sure, you can buy this in a print on demand
Oh, that's
way.
right. Yeah, that's a very common thing now. Yeah.
And have never ever been released as an ebook. Or, I'm sorry, never ever been released as an audiobook because the market just isn't there to demand the cost of paying voice actors or a voice actor and an editor and an engineer, which is an entirely different cost that never exists if you only put it out as an ebook and a print book.
Correct. And as publishers, if we want to hire a guy like Ray Porter to go a professional voice talent experienced in the space to go record an audiobook, there is a significant cost associated with that. So that is related to hiring people to be mean to you. Now you're hiring people to be nice to you and apply their talent to the thing that has gone through acquisition and editing and packaging. Now you need someone to go perform that thing. It's another part of what you do as a publisher that is very significant.
And as the creative arts and the creative industries get continually kind of whittled down and slivered away and stuff like that, we have somebody like Ray Porter, who we love, who is an absolutely stellar narrator, who is literally also an actor, a TV visual actor. And so he's vying to live his life, pay his mortgage, pay for his family's life, whatever it is, by choosing what the most lucrative thing is. So it's not just, hey, will you record this? It's, hey, can you record this, and how much will that cost, and how busy are you? So Chris Grawl in the Facebook chat room makes a good point here. He says 6-to-1 ratio on audiobooks, 6 hours of work for every 1 finished hour of audio. And that is if your whole team is efficient. And I agree. It is difficult. Michael Moore in the Facebook chat room says, use AI to do voices. I will say 2 things about that, and Scott and anybody else chime in. One, if I use an AI voice, I cannot submit it with my contract with Audible. I cannot. It will. They will just reject it outright. And 2, I will say we have worked with AI to help improve audio sound or figure out what's wrong. And at least in my experience, as limited as I am, that technology isn't yet there.
We won't get into that right now, but there is, in the world of publishing, in the world of audiobook production, within the next 2 years, I used to say 5 years, within the next 2 years, there is going to be a come to Jesus moment where people like us, a smaller publisher, putting out titles, are going to be able to do the whole thing with AI voices, different character voices for every character, with just a highlight and tag format. It's absolutely coming. You still need royalty of the industry like Ray Porter, etc. But right now, that is not part of what we are discussing being a publisher.
Yeah, and I will say also, Chris Casey, who is in the Facebook chat room and is himself an actor and also in the ebook industry, both things are true of Chris Casey. He says AI can read okay, but it can't perform yet. And I agree with that. There is a lot that AI I wish could do that, in my experience, it cannot do at all. So that's kind of difficult if you're a bridge publisher, tiny publisher like we are. So we're almost out of time. We've just got a few more minutes, but I want to wrap up to say I think the take-home message for us as tiny publishers who have been doing this since 2009 is 3 things. The first thing is, right now, the industry is always changing, and right now the industry is changing in wonderful ways that lean into small publishers or small companies. You just have to use that wisely. We have, as I just mentioned, we have tried to have an AI-assisted kind of editing of audio and things like that. And all of that just had to be backed out and done manually because the system isn't there yet, although I think it will be someday.
Yep.
Secondarily, I will say you always protect your IP because your IP belongs to you as long as you don't give it to anybody else. And it's very appealing to sort of suggest, like, cool, if somebody else is going to pay for this, it will be fine. And we've seen that 1,000 times in 1,000 movies and in real life where it kind of doesn't.
That can work too. But if you're saying, if the thing you want to prioritize, if you can control your own IP and do that extra bit of work, that has ramifications and payouts throughout your lifetime as opposed to signing that over to somebody else.
Yes, and I mean that in every step of the way. So we have just advocated very heavily between you hiring somebody you don't know to be mean to you to edit your book. I would not pay an AI editing company to do your book unless you're absolutely ironclad sure that that doesn't give them permission to your IP. Things like that. We don't know that yet about anything in the digital marketplace. So if you can pay somebody to be mean to you, even if it means you give up some little graces, and I always like the thing you give up is your pumpkin spice lattes in October. If you can do that and hire a real editor who has really edited things, that's going to give you a lot more longevity with your IP.
Real quick,
it's worth it.
Real quick, if you guys at home are listening to this on the podcast and you are interested in being an author, or you're an aspiring author, or you're in the production, or you're a small publisher, baby, what's the one site they should go to hire someone who could be mean to them about editing?
For sure, I would go to readsy.com for editing and proofreading. You get it's a marketplace of people who are part of this industry. You hire them through Readsy, REEDSY. But you have a personal relationship with them, and you get a lot of options. And there's no harm if you reject 15 of them until you find your. And we have found several editors for several of Scott's properties that lean into the type of property it is and really thrive in that property. And I would absolutely suggest that.
Wonderful.
For sure.
You do not want to send it to me. Number one, you can't afford me. My hourly rate is astronomical. Number two, when I find plot points that don't line up, I will probably insult your maternal great grandmother and say, what did she do to create this gene pool that made this bullshit? So you don't want to send it to us. There's Not Nice, and then there's Scott Sigler, which is a whole different level of not nice.
Yeah, so we only have literally no time left. So we will talk about how you publish it into the marketplace in the future. But I will say with clarity, because Empty Set Entertainment is an LLC that is identified as a publisher, we are unable to accept or review unsolicited manuscripts or unsolicited ideas. So if you send something like that to Empty Set, we're unable to have Scott look at it
I will send you email reply with a picture of my dog's butt. That's what you will get.
And the number of times that people actually say, like, hey, have Scott's people call me, like that doesn't exist as a thing mostly because we can't afford the legal fees to make sure that you feel taken care of there. So we don't do any of that. So I think that is it for Deep Cuts today. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about?
I do not. We have a great group of people in the chat room right now. So if you're listening to this at home, we do this every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And we love having people in the chat room. Keeps us energized, keeps us on topic. Great questions come in. You can join us at twitch.tv/Scott Sigler, facebook.com/Scott Sigler, or youtube.com/Scott Sigler. That is it for this episode of Deep Cuts. Next episode, babe, we have a guest.
I know.
Yes, we have a guest. We have the creator of The White Vault and Vast Horizons and many other wonderful full cast audio productions, which are beyond our ability as a publisher. It just is too much work for us. We're going to have Travis on and talk about those things. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I think that's it. So we are done for tonight. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Next week starts a new episode with a guest for Deep Cuts.
Bye.
You guys have a good
Y'all
night.
smell an awful lot like flowers. Bye.
And also, if you guys are coming
too
back.
late. I stopped. Nope. Go ahead.
If you guys are coming back next week for Scott Sigler Slices, we're going to start Death is Black next week. You already know that.
Okay, great. Now we've stopped recording, so you guys can goof all you want. Let's see. I want to talk about something in the chat room. Who said? Mike Ward says, that was a deep ass cut. Love it. Love it. Tracy,
really
we're going to
like
have
this.
guests on. Tracy, just Google The White Vault. It's a podcast. Listen to the first 2-3 episodes. You will know whether you like it or not. So these are people who do things in the podcasting space, in the fiction podcasting space, that we're not fucking going there. That is not what we do. So, and then we've got 3 weeks of guests in a row. We've got Tracy from The White Vault. We have then Chris Grawl, the author of Trigger Guard, which we're going to fucking just pimp the shit out of this book. It's going to be great. And then we have another author, Brian Assman, the author of Good Dogs, which is a werewolf story. We're going to have him on the day after his book comes out. So yeah, a lot of guests coming up in deep cuts. It's going to be great. We will let all of you guys know. Please make sure that you are text 855-955-5095. You will know all the shit that's coming out on your phone. It's a magical device that reaches out into space. It reaches out into space and connects you with my brain, which is space, which is good for you.
I love this.
This is phenomenal.
I love this.
Now we're going to be nerds. This is a little $20 add-on to the Rode, RODE pod mic, one word pod mic, which is a very good $99 microphone for podcasting. They have sold these. It's gotten rid of almost all. I've heard very little plosives. It helps with your mouth position. And you've heard so many in the last few weeks. This is a amazing little thing. Plus, it's in pretty colors. We both have our favorite colors, so it's wonderful.
We both have our favorite colors. I know you think both of our favorite colors are orange and black, but his is orange and mine is this color green.
That's you know what? I can't. Just as a married doesn't mean she has taste. Should be Kraken's orange, goddammit. That should be your favorite color. Sean, does it also filter out the sibilants? I think that is largely a thing we do in post, but there's clearly some degree of help with sibilants with this. But that's a plug-in thing you do after the fact before it comes out.
We really appreciate you guys hanging out all these weeks, all these times with us, and we appreciate you.
40 people hanging out. You guys are all fantastic. Jen, don't ever apologize for showing up late. You always show up right on time.
When is necessary and expected.
Exactly when we need you to show up. Boom. There you are. It's fantastic. So
you guys have a great night. We will see you next week. We thank you for hanging out.
Let's switch cameras. Now we've got actually the double camera set up. So now I got to figure out how the fuck to turn these bitches. What's that? What did Martin say?
He said the Kawasaki lime green.
Kawasaki lime green. Yeah, I might have to get a base in that color. I'm not going to lie to you. I had one in neon green. It was just a little bit too harsh. It kind of hurt the synapses. It was too much. You guys are fantastic. We all love you. We'll see you next week. You guys check out the White Vault. Listen to 3-4 episodes. Come back and do us a solid so you have good questions to ask our guest because they are fantastic.